The 21st century marks a spectacular transformation in modern industry, where animal processing factories handle over 120 million tons of products and raw materials each year with near-perfect precision. Inside these colossal facilities, what exactly turns high-value products into true luxury items of the agricultural world? Today, join Agriculture Insight as we explore these giant factories, where state-of-the-art production lines handle some of the most expensive and rare materials with a level of sophistication beyond imagination. Deer antlers are the fastest-growing bone structure on Earth, even faster than the metastasis rate of human cancer cells. Each day, an antler can lengthen by about 2 centimeters, and within just 3 months, its weight can exceed 20 kilograms. Antler growth only begins when maternal growth hormones activate the cells at the base of the frontal bone, initiating the formation of the antler shaft. The harvesting process starts with sedation to maintain physiological stability and prevent stress responses. The antler is removed at the pedicle, the point where connective tissue and bone are clearly separated, minimizing pain. Immediately after cutting, the pedicle is disinfected and covered with a biological seal to stop bleeding, control microorganisms, and stabilize the tissue. Under optimal conditions, a mature deer can yield up to 4 harvests per year. At the processing facility, cleaned velvet antlers undergo thermal treatment to stabilize the tissue and deactivate enzymes. They are then immersed in a specialized biological solution, the key step that preserves protein structures and protects the natural compounds. Once stabilized, the antlers are sliced and dried to reduce moisture, maintain structural integrity, and extend shelf life for several months. Interestingly, New Zealand remains the only country that legally permits large-scale deer farming for industrial antler production. Most antler products used in collagen, nutraceuticals, and regenerative pharmaceuticals in the US, South Korea, and Europe originate from here. Dubbed the Wagyu of the pork world, Jamon Iberico is a rare convergence of genetics, terroir, ecosystem, and time, a true Mediterranean masterpiece. Its journey begins in the Dehesa grasslands of southwestern Spain, where millions of holm and cork oak trees grow naturally spaced across thousands of hectares. Here, Iberico black pigs roam freely, walking tens of kilometers each day to forage for acorns, rich in oleic acid comparable to olive oil, which permeate the meat and form the unique intramuscular fat structure found in no other pig breed. When the Montanera season ends, the hind legs, where intramuscular fat density and muscle fiber architecture are most ideal, enter a transformation lasting more than 900 days. In the first stage, they are coated with pure sea salt at a precise ratio of 30 grams per kilogram of meat, just enough to inhibit harmful bacteria while allowing enzymatic activity to continue. Over 2 weeks at low temperatures, the salt slowly penetrates the meat, reducing moisture and activating natural biochemical reactions. Next, the jamon is moved into traditional curing chambers. No climate control, no humidifiers, relying solely on cold winds, ambient humidity, and native microorganisms. These conditions allow penicillium molds and local microflora to flourish, forming a natural biological rind that both protects the meat and begins unlocking its signature clean, buttery richness. Over the next 2 to 4 years, fats and proteins break down, generating more than 120 aromatic compounds, from chestnut, caramel, and dairy notes to aged oak wood and fermented cheese undertones. This is no mere salted pork. It is a living biochemical transformation, where time, geography, and native microbiology co-create a flavor profile that modern industry simply cannot replicate. These tiny bees, weighing less than 0.1 grams, collectively produce over 1.9 million tons of honey each year for the global food industry. Beekeepers use gentle smoke to interrupt the bees' defensive pheromone signals, reducing their aggression and guiding them away from the comb surface. Once the hive has coined, each honey-filled frame is removed and taken to the processing area. Here, the wax cappings that seal every hexagonal cell are cut away using a heated knife or an automatic uncapping machine. The frames are then placed into an industrial centrifuge. As the drum spins at speeds of up to 400 RPM, centrifugal force pulls the honey out of the wax structure while preserving its enzymes, micronutrients, pollen, and natural microbiome, the true essence of raw honey. The extracted honey then passes through a multi-stage coarse filtration system, where ultra-fine screens remove wax fragments, mechanical impurities, and small bee particles. Notably, the honey is never heated, allowing its enzyme structure and biological activity to remain almost fully intact. And here's a fun fact. When paired with pancakes, honey enhances perceived sweetness by up to 1.7 times, yet adds only about 21 calories per teaspoon. That's why chefs often call honey a natural flavor carrier, a catalyst that makes the notes of butter, pastry, or cheese sharper and deeper than refined sugar or artificial syrups ever could. Deep within the damp, shadowed cliffs of Southeast Asia, swiftlets cling upside down to the cave ceiling, secreting a unique glycoprotein that forms an exceptionally adhesive material, strong enough for their delicate nests to withstand forces up to 30 times their own weight. When the nest completes its natural cycle, typically after 3 months, once the fledglings have left, it is harvested carefully to avoid disrupting the bird's breeding rhythm. Workers detach each nest from the rock surface using only their bare hands, requiring steady control and absolute precision. Most natural birds' nests are incredibly fragile and can crumble with even the slightest touch, turning the harvesting process into a true craft. Inside the processing facility, raw nests, still mixed with feathers, dust, and wood fibers, are softened with clean water and moved to the picking stations. Here, every impurity is removed with tweezers to preserve the original structure of the nest and eliminate all biological contaminants. The crucial qualities that determine purity and texture are then maintained through meticulous shaping, drying, and sterilization under tightly controlled conditions. This refined process is what brings edible bird's nest to Beverly Hills, one of America's most luxurious markets, placing it among the world's most expensive foods, with prices exceeding USD $3,000 per kilogram. In many premium boutiques, high-grade nests even cost 3 times more than saffron or truffles. Modern merino sheep can no longer shed their wool naturally, and without regular shearing, their fleece can swell to 25 kilograms, causing overheating, infections, and severe exhaustion. Shearing, therefore, is not just harvesting. It is essential for the animal's well-being. The wool harvest takes place once a year, typically in early spring. Professional shearers use electric shearing machines with blades curved to match the sheep's body. A skilled shearer can remove the fleece of a sheep in under 2 minutes, keeping the entire coat intact, a single continuous piece known as the fleece. Every movement must be precise. Even one deep cut can downgrade the wool to industrial-grade fiber and wipe out over 60% of its value. After shearing, the fleece is braided based on its position on the body. Wool from the back and sides, the cleanest, finest, and most uniform fibers, is classified as highest-grade apparel wool, destined for Italian suits or ultra-light knitwear. Wool from the belly, legs, and rear, often mixed with lanolin, sweat, and soil, is better suited for carpets, insulation, or acoustic materials. A premium merino fleece may sell for less than USD $60, but once spun, woven, and finished, its value can exceed USD $300 for a sweater or USD $2,000 for a tailored suit. This is why merino wool is considered one of the highest margin materials in the global textile. Among more than 300 cattle breeds worldwide, the intramuscular fat-building process of Wagyu demands stricter biological conditions than any other. This mechanism is precisely what makes Wagyu so expensive. Even a slight rise in cortisol levels can halt fat deposition within the muscle fibers, disrupting the entire marbling cycle and sharply reducing its commercial value. Inside the processing plant, Wagyu is handled under a dedicated protocol designed to preserve marbling quality, with temperature and humidity tightly controlled at every stage, from slaughter to final packaging. The entire workflow must occur at consistently low temperatures to maintain the spiraled fat structure, a unique form of intramuscular fat embedded deep within each fiber rather than sitting as an outer layer. Each cut is inspected and graded based on 3 key metrics: marbling density, firmness, and meltability. As a result, only batches that meet A4 or A5 standards qualify for freezing, chilled cutting, and export, often commanding prices that reach USD $450 per kilogram, placing Wagyu on the same tier as bluefin tuna and beluga caviar. In China, where millions of quail eggs are produced each day for the global market, every stage of harvesting and processing is carried out under strict control to minimize losses. Because the shell is as thin as a sheet of paper, just enough to protect the embryo, yet prone to cracking under even slight force, collection must be done entirely by hand to preserve each egg's shape. Only eggs that pass initial inspection are sent to multi-stage washing lines, first through low-pressure misting to remove dust and surface debris, followed by ultrasonic sanitation tanks that eliminate microbes without eroding the shell. Those that meet the standards move on to the peeling system, where specialized rollers and separating blades operate at under 5 newtons of pressure, enough to list the membrane without damaging the delicate albumin. This method yields a high rate of intact eggs, ideal for canning and ready-to-eat food production. A portion of the output is processed into century-style quail eggs, a higher-value product. Here, the eggs are cured in a mixture of alkaline salts, black tea, salt, and plant ash for 14 to 21 days, causing the proteins to coagulate slowly. The yolk turns into a dense amber gel, while the white becomes translucent like jelly. The eggs are then rinsed, stabilized, and packaged under microbiological standards, becoming a strong selling item across Asia and increasingly popular in Europe and the Americas as demand for East Asian cuisine grows. A single gallon of Italian buffalo milk can become a cheese, far more valuable than anything made from cow's milk. Buffalo milk contains twice the fat and roughly 30% more protein than cow's milk, creating a cheese that is denser, glossier, and distinctly moist, a texture cow's milk mozzarella can rarely replicate. Inside stainless steel fermentation vats, rennet and lactic cultures begin transforming proteins into curds, slowly separating them from the whey. Immediately after, the automated cutting system determines the cheese's destiny. Finely cut curds yield a firmer product with lower moisture, ideal for long-distance export. Larger curds create a softer, richer cheese destined for Neapolitan pizza, famed for its supple, creamy stretch. But the defining moment comes when the curd is plunged into near-boiling water for stretching. The proteins unwind and realign into glossy, elastic sheets, forming strands that can stretch up to 30 inches without breaking. Each year, from the fields of Campania, roughly 50,000 tons of mozzarella di bufala are produced, a true money-making engine that generates over $800 million annually for this fertile region. In modern livestock farming, industrial chicken production was once considered the optimal formula for cost efficiency and output. But as consumers began weighing animal welfare more seriously, Free-range farming quickly emerged as a more progressive and hard-to-ignore alternative. In 2024, the global free-range chicken market was valued at around $17.4 billion and is projected to grow several times over in the next decade. Each year, the shift toward free-range systems increases by roughly 8%, especially in the UK and Australia, where free-range eggs account for nearly half of the commercial egg market. However, free-range doesn't always mean true freedom. In the United States, even a small door opened for a few minutes a day can be enough to legally qualify as free-range. But under the European animal welfare standards, only farms that provide at least 4 meters squared of outdoor space per chicken, with vegetation, sunlight, and real opportunities to forage, dust bathe, stretch their wings, and express natural behaviors, are recognized as genuinely free-range. And now to see whether free-range farming truly lives up to expectations, let's head to Australia, where the model is applied rigorously, making it one of the largest free-range markets in the world. The process of selecting and incubating eggs is a crucial stage that directly determines the health and productivity of the entire flock. The eggs are not chosen at random. They come from parent stock flocks carefully selected for breed quality, reproductive performance, and genetic traits. Meanwhile, in closed housing, staff prepare the floor with compressed wood shavings or treated soft wood chips. These materials retain heat well, naturally absorb moisture, and provide a soft cushion to protect the eggs while limiting bacterial growth. Here, the entire area is disinfected, sealed, and controlled for temperature, humidity, ventilation, and lighting. The cleaner the environment, the fewer pathogens have the chance to threaten the chicks. Unlike industrial incubation, free-range farms spread the eggs directly onto the barn floor. This method not only reduces stress and embryo mortality, but also helps chicks develop natural responses to heat, light, and humidity from the very first day. An eggshell is only about 3 times thicker than a human hair, yet contains up to 7,000 tiny pores. This means even slight pressure or vibration can damage the cuticle layer and allow bacteria to enter. That's why specialized egg-spreading equipment is used, featuring silicone suction heads and low vacuum pressure, strong enough to hold the eggs, but gentle enough not to deform the shell. The eggs are then placed onto a bed of wood shavings adjusted to the right warmth, with humidity maintained at around 55%, closely mimicking the natural conditions under a brooding hen. After about 18 to 19 days of incubation, the chicks begin to stir and pierce the air cell, a sign that the hatching process has officially begun. When ready, they activate their remarkable instinct to break free, pecking from the inside along a curved line, rotating their bodies clockwise while using the neck muscles to apply steady pressure. Each rhythmic peck gradually opens the shell's edge, like a pre-programmed escape mechanism. By this stage, the chick's respiratory system is fully developed, allowing it to supply its own oxygen and sustain the effort needed for the final push. Once the crack forms a full circle around the shell, the chick gives one last burst of force to pop the cap open and wriggle its way out, a small but decisive challenge for its survival. During the first 7 to 10 days after hatching, chicks must be kept in a closed brooding pen with dry bedding, stable heat lamps, and an automatic watering system. Faced to nipple drinkers, they quickly learn to drink on their own within a few days, significantly reducing the risk of digestive infections. At this stage, their diet consists mainly of crumbled starter feed, a formula with protein raised to about 20% to support muscle and skeletal development. The goal isn't to make them grow as fast as possible, but to build the basics, learning to find their own food, seek water, and adapt to flock behavior, rather than relying entirely on human caretakers. In Australia today, mobile chicken coops are spreading rapidly, especially across free-range farms and regenerative agriculture systems. Because they can be moved continuously across pasture, mobile coops reduce parasite pressure by up to 80% and improve soil organic matter after each grazing cycle. Many farms in Victoria and Western Australia even integrate solar panels, ventilation fans, and automatic doors to streamline operation. By combining animal welfare, soil improvement, and economic efficiency, mobile coops have become one of the fastest-growing models in the free-range poultry sector. And from this very moment onward, the defining privilege that sets free-range chickens apart from industrial birds truly begins. In fixed free-range systems, chickens are released outdoors according to a tightly controlled schedule. During the first few weeks, they spend only 2 to 3 hours outside each day to get familiar with the weather, the ground, and to learn how to return to the coop on their own. Once they adapt, outdoor time is extended to about 8 hours, usually from morning until late afternoon. Bringing them back to the coop each day helps maintain their natural rhythm. Supplemental feeding, rest, protection from cold night winds, and reduced exposure to predators. Although they forage freely, natural food sources supply only about 30 to 40% of their daily nutritional needs, so farmers must provide additional grains and minerals to ensure steady growth. Thanks to constant movement in an open environment, their metabolism accelerates. Subcutaneous fat decreases by roughly 30%, while thigh and breast muscles develop more prominently. As a result, their meat becomes firm, dense, and naturally springy, a texture that industrial farming cannot replicate, even with the same breed. By the 6th month, the hens begin laying eggs, and farmers collect each batch and transport it directly to the processing plant for packaging or for producing egg-based products. Each year, the world produces over 1.6 trillion commercial eggs. All of them are transported in the familiar trays, with cone-shaped hollows, triangular walls, and breathable surfaces. This seemingly simple design is highly effective. It locks each egg in place and reduces impact-related damage by up to 90%. From there, robotic arms equipped with force sensors and vacuum grippers lift entire stacks of trays without putting pressure on the shell surface. They rotate, raise, and place each stack onto the conveyor with precision, lining them up neatly and ready for the next stage of processing. Next, the eggs pass through an automated washing and sanitizing system. Low-pressure water is sprayed with just enough force to remove dust, manure, and straw debris without scratching the shell or damaging the natural cuticle layer. After cleaning, the eggs move into the candling chamber where high-intensity light, about 30 times brighter than a standard lamp, together with optical sensors, scans through the calcium shell to detect cracks, displaced air cells, faulty embryos, or traces of blood. Next, the eggs move through the solenoid unit. Each piston delivers a precise push to direct the egg onto the correct conveyor based on its size or any detected defects. After passing all inspection and grading stages, the eggs are moved to the packaging area. Here, robotic arms gently place each egg into molded pulp or plastic trays, keeping them stable and minimizing impact. Each tray is automatically labeled with detailed information: packing date, farm origin, egg type, and quality grade. The trays are then stacked into large cartons and sent into a cooling system to maintain freshness throughout transport. Refrigerated trucks collect the finished batches and deliver them to logistics centers, from where they are distributed to hundreds of supermarkets and retail stores. That is the process inside an egg processing plant. But what about free-range chicken meat? A product with higher nutrient density and a price often several times higher than industrial chicken. Free-range chickens are typically raised for 2 to 3 times longer than industrial birds, which gives them firmer muscles, stronger bones, and thicker connective tissue. As a result, several steps in the processing plant, such as stunning, plucking, and deboning, must be adjusted in force, timing, or temperature to handle the characteristics of this type of chicken properly. After the carcass is rinsed, the viscera extraction system removes the entire set of internal organs in a single motion, keeping the membrane intact to prevent leakage and reduce the risk of cross-contamination. As the bird moves through the giblets collecting station, the heart, liver, and gizzard are retained if they pass hygiene inspection, while the remaining parts are sent to the byproduct processing line. Next, the cropper machine removes the crop and esophagus, areas prone to food residue and microbial buildup, before the chicken moves on to the net cutting stage, carried out according to commercial standards. After being thoroughly rinsed, the chicken moves into the auto cut-up system, where clusters of automated blades cut with anatomical precision, dividing the meat into commercial portions such as whole birds, thighs, wings, breasts, necks, skin, bones, or organ parts. Depending on factors such as weight, muscle thickness, meat color, and intended use, all evaluated automatically, breast meat may be directed toward quick processing lines or premium products, while the skin, bones, and cartilage are utilized to produce collagen, meat powder, functional foods, or raw materials for the livestock industry. Free-range chicken typically has a richer, firmer flavor than industrial chicken, and its taste is somewhat similar to turkey, but lighter and more delicate. It is naturally high in protein, selenium, and vitamin B12, a good choice for those who prefer healthy eating. It can be cooked in many ways: roasted whole, pan-seared, or marinated with barbecue or Asian-style sauces. In terms of price, in Australia, a whole free-range chicken usually sells for around Australian dollars 19.50 at retail, while an equivalent industrial chicken may cost only about $8 to $10 per kilogram, meaning free-range chicken is nearly twice as expensive, depending on the region. And from these pheasants, a part of them embark on a very different journey, not to the kitchen but to the bustling autumn fields, where the tradition and passion of hunting are revived season after season. Pheasant farming in the United States takes on a form unlike any other branch of poultry farming. Each year, more than 10 million birds are raised, yet most will never go straight to the kitchen. When autumn arrives, they are released into the wild, becoming the quarry of hunting seasons that stretch into the winter. In states like South Dakota and Iowa, hundreds of thousands of hunters gather, bringing dogs, caravans, and a host of gear, turning golden fields into a vibrant tableau of a tradition rooted in centuries of history. The barking of dogs, the crunch of footsteps on dry leaves, the frantic beating of pheasant wings, all merge with the echo of gunshots, creating an experience that is at once a sport and a vital part of the local economy. In England, the scale is even greater, with tens of millions of birds released each year and an entire ecosystem of lodging, gastronomy, and land conservation revolving around the hunting season. For many, the true value lies not only in the final product, but in the very moment of touching a tradition preserved and repeated across generations. Yet pheasants are more than just game birds. They stand at the crossroads of recreation, agriculture, conservation, tradition, and even ethical debate. Few realize that these prized birds were once regarded as a luxury dish, and that their origins trace not to Europe, but to Asia. Within just a few decades, they adapted swiftly, becoming part of the ecosystem of the American Midwest, from South Dakota to Iowa, Kansas, and Nebraska. Today, the breeding and release of millions of pheasants each year is organized with a professionalism rivaling that of livestock or broiler farming. Join us as we explore the journey of the pheasant, from egg to the moment it takes flight across the grasslands, by visiting the farms where this remarkable story begins. Every journey begins with an egg. At pheasant farms across the Midwest, breeding is carried out under two main models: fully industrial and semi-wild. In both systems, hens are carefully selected based on genetic health, egg productivity, and maternal instincts. The incubation process begins right at the farm, where workers collect each egg from the nests. Only those that meet strict standards, intact shells, balanced shape, and uniform size, are chosen to ensure the highest hatching rates. Once collected, the eggs are taken to a sanitation area and gently washed with warm water from a heating system, a process that removes dirt and destroys bacteria without damaging the egg's natural protective membrane. Next, the eggs are carefully placed into specialized paper trays, each holding several dozen. Before moving them to the incubator, workers gently tap the eggs against one another or use light candling to check their sound and clarity, detecting hollow eggs or hidden cracks that the eye might miss. Only those that pass this test are kept to ensure a high hatching rate. Once ready, the eggs are transferred to the incubator, where the temperature is kept steady at around 37.5 degrees Celsius and humidity at 55 to 60%, precisely replicating the natural conditions of a brooding hen. Over the course of nearly 3 weeks, an automated system turns the eggs several times a day, allowing the embryos to develop evenly and preventing them from sticking to the shell. Every factor, from temperature and humidity to the turning cycles, is carefully controlled, for even the smallest deviation could mean the difference between life and death for the young pheasants growing inside. After about 23-25 days of incubation, life begins to stir quietly within the fragile shell. The young pheasant waits patiently for its moment, then starts tapping with its tiny, still damp beak, striking rhythmically against the shell and creating the first cracks. Each tap is like a declaration of its imminent escape from the confined world that has sheltered it for so long. The shell gradually breaks apart, revealing a small body covered in soft down of brown and golden hues. At once a natural coat for warmth and perfect camouflage in the wild. Still drenched and trembling on unsteady legs, it takes its first breaths, slowly opens its eyes, and greets the warm light of a new world, where the journey of survival and growth is only just beginning. Immediately after hatching, the chicks are moved to a brooding house, an enclosed space lined with straw or sawdust to preserve heat and reduce slipping, while shielding them from drafts to create maximum safety. The temperature is kept between 32 to 35 degrees Celsius during the first week, then gradually lowered week by week to help them adapt to the natural climate. Light and humidity are carefully regulated to stimulate feeding instincts and encourage activity, crucial for pheasants. Known for their agility, nutrient-rich feed is placed in long troughs or multi-compartment round trays, making it easy for chicks to reach without spillage, while water is provided to inverted bottles with shallow catch trays, both practical and designed to keep their feathers dry. This meticulous care, combined with their innate wild instincts, makes pheasant chicks sturdier and more resilient than many other poultry species from their very first days of life. On large pheasant farms in the United States, there is one task that may sound simple, yet it is key to protecting the entire flock: fitting beak masks on the young birds. The purpose of this practice comes directly from pheasant behavior. In high-density environments, they are prone to pecking feathers, fighting, and even inflicting serious injuries on one another. The beak mask acts like a tiny shield. It limits direct vision and softens the force of each peck, turning potentially harmful strikes into harmless gestures. Thanks to this, their plumage remains intact, their health is preserved, and the flock lives in greater harmony. At just a few weeks old, the chicks are gathered in small groups inside a quiet room. Farmers carefully catch each one, holding it firmly yet gently enough to prevent panic. With a swift and practiced motion, they slip a small plastic ring, often blue or yellow, through the beak. Today, in the United States, this technique has become standard practice in many commercial game bird farms, especially in states where sport hunting is widespread. For farmers, it is both a humane and effective solution, allowing the birds to thrive until they reach market weight or are released back into the wild. Once they are fully grown and strong enough to withstand a new environment, pheasants are loaded onto trucks in golden yellow plastic crates, stacked neatly like massive Lego blocks. Each crate is securely locked, designed to provide ventilation so the birds can breathe easily while preventing them from pushing against each other or escaping. Ready for the journey to larger enclosures where their next stage of growth awaits. These new pens are encircled by sturdy netting, serving both as a shield against predators and as a barrier to stop these skilled flyers from escaping. Inside, the space is arranged like a natural training ground. Wooden perches set at different heights provide ideal vantage points for the pheasants to rest, sharpen their reflexes, and maintain their innate wariness. The flooring changes with the seasons to mimic the wild as closely as possible, covered in crisp white snow during winter, and layered with sand or dry straw in warmer months, offering comfort and familiarity beneath their feet. Above, a canopy combined with overhead netting not only keeps the flock contained, but also blocks wild birds and animals from intruding. Pheasant meat is unlike the heavy fattiness of duck or the melt-in-your-mouth tenderness of industrial chicken. It carries a different kind of refinement: firm, lean fibers, long muscle strands, and a flavor that is bold yet delicate, leaving a lingering sweetness at the back of the throat, like the scent of fresh grass still wet with morning dew drifting on an autumn breeze. In fine European restaurants, roast pheasant is regarded as the true test of a chef. The thin skin crisps to perfection, glistening with a bronze sheen, enveloping the meat within, juicy yet springy, each bite seeming to melt while still holding its resilience. The fragrance of thyme, butter, and white wine intertwines, evoking memories of a hunting season banquet in an old castle. With braised pheasant, patience is essential. The meat is slowly simmered with brandy, wild mushrooms, and root vegetables, allowing every fiber to absorb layers of deep, complex flavor. Each spoonful reveals a progression of tastes: the sweetness of the meat, the gentle richness of the broth, and the subtle astringency of the wine upon the tongue. And then there is pheasant soup, an entirely different story, rustic and comforting. The broth is crystal clear, carrying a natural sweetness, laced with the aroma of onion and celery. A single sip spreads warmth through the body, as if cradling the golden autumn forest itself within your hands. Nearly 1/4 of China's territory is desert, where scorching winds and drifting sand make it extremely difficult for crops to survive. The Taklamakan Desert alone spans more than 330,000 square kilometers and is so dry that it's nearly devoid of life. Yet instead of abandoning this harsh land, the Chinese took an unexpected approach. They began growing cotton. To grow crops in the desert, China relies on an entire system of specialized technology. High-powered tractors plow, level, and compact the loose sand into stable, straight rows, reducing sand drift by up to 70% and helping the soil retain moisture. After that, they lay down agricultural mulch film stretching for kilometers, a solution that can cut water evaporation by up to 90% and retain enough warmth for seeds to germinate. Thanks to the combination of heavy machinery and modern agricultural materials, the once shifting desert surface is transformed into ground stable enough for cultivation. Once the sand is compacted and covered with mulch, seeds are planted into small openings. A drip irrigation system immediately delivers precise amounts of water, helping the seeds germinate reliably amid the desert's extreme dryness. After months of enduring scorching winds, extreme temperature swings, and sandstorms capable of wiping out entire fields overnight, the desert cotton farms finally reach harvest season. From the now stabilized sandy ground, China moves on to the most critical phase: tech-driven harvesting. Bright red cotton harvesters, from Tianya machines to the John Deere CP690, advance in perfect formation like a mechanized army, sweeping across thousands of hectares. Each machine handles 10 to 12 tons of cotton per hour and compresses it into dense modules within minutes. With GPS, ground sensors, and automated control cabins, entire fields stretching tens of square kilometers require only 3 to 5 engineers to monitor everything remotely. Lacking the fertile land that the United States possesses, China has been forced to build its advantage through technology, turning deserts into industrial-scale agricultural production lines. It is precisely the harshness of nature that pushed them to develop a generation of powerful, highly precise machines, capable of transforming uncultivable land into one of the world's major cotton hubs. Leaving behind the white cotton fields of the harsh desert, we continue our journey to lush green rice paddies, where the power of machinery and automation is reshaping the way humans farm. For centuries, rice transplanting was one of the toughest tasks for Asian farmers. Bending over in flooded fields for hours, planting each seedling by hand, and managing to cover only a few hundred square meters per day. But today, everything has been completely transformed thanks to automatic rice transplanting technology. Modern rice transplanters like the one you see here operate as large-scale agricultural robots. At the front sits a platform holding dozens of seedling trays, while at the back, a system of mechanical arms continuously lifts, separates, and plants the seedlings into the field at a steady pace. Each machine can handle 1 to 2 hectares per hour, equivalent to the workload of 40 to 50 traditional laborers. RTK GPS technology allows the machine to move in perfectly straight lines, with a margin of error under 2 centimeters, ensuring nearly perfect spacing and density between each plant. Depth sensors automatically adjust the planting feet, so the seedlings are neither too deep nor too shallow. All of this happens while the operator simply sits in the cabin, monitoring the parameters through a digital display. As the rice grows and enters the tillering stage, technology once again takes over the farmer's labor. Automatic spraying drones follow GPS routes, dispersing ultrafine mist across entire hectares within minutes, protecting the rice evenly, quickly, and with almost no manual work required. And as the green rice seedlings grow taller, the paddies turn golden. Harvest season has arrived. Unlike wheat harvesters in the United States, which operate on dry, flat, and firm fields, rice harvesters must work under completely opposite conditions: deep mud, soft ground, low traction, and a high risk of getting stuck. That's why their technology is specially designed. Wide track rollers to distribute weight, automatic balancing systems to prevent tipping, and a cutting threshing mechanism that works reliably even when water reaches halfway up the wheels. A modern rice harvester can process 0.6 to 1.2 hectares per hour, replacing the labor of 20 to 30 workers. Inside, the threshing and fan system separates grain from straw within seconds, depositing the rice directly into sacks or sealed containers to minimize moisture. Thanks to sensors that monitor soil moisture and sinking, the machine automatically adjusts its speed to avoid damaging the remaining stalks. While wheat harvesters in the US run like steel trains across dry plains, in Asia, rice harvesters resemble mud-crawling machines, fine-tuned with precision for every movement. As a country warming at twice the global average, having recorded temperatures above 50 degrees Celsius in Xinjiang and experiencing extreme rainfall that forces millions to evacuate each year, China has been pushed to accelerate greenhouse agriculture to safeguard its food security. In modern greenhouse complexes, vegetable production operates like a clean food factory. Seeds are dispersed by vibration machines with less than 1% error, incubated in perfectly climate-controlled chambers, and then transferred into the main greenhouse. Here, high-pressure misting systems maintain stable humidity, LED lights adjust to each growth stage to boost development by 20 to 30%, and robots continuously move trays to optimize light exposure and airflow. All data, from leaf color to growth rate, is analyzed by AI, which automatically fine-tunes environmental settings by the hour. The vegetables grow in conditions so clean that pesticides are almost unnecessary and contamination risks are virtually non-existent. When harvest time comes, robots pull the trays into a sealed processing area where the produce is washed, sorted, and packaged immediately. The entire journey from seed to table remains within a fully controlled technological chain, reflecting the advancement of Chinese agriculture amid an era of harsh climate conditions. While this model delivers consistent, year-round, and safe produce, its cost is 1.5 to 3 times higher than traditional farming, forcing older cultivation methods to evolve or risk being left behind. Under the pressure of harsh climate conditions and a surging demand for clean food, China is not only building vegetable factories inside greenhouses, but also deploying robots directly into the fields, replacing labor-intensive, sweat-driven tasks with precise, fully automated systems. Apple harvesting has long been an extremely labor-consuming job, picking each fruit by hand, risking bruised skins, and requiring hundreds of labor hours for just 1 hectare. That pressure has driven many orchards to adopt apple-picking robots, machines that precisely replicate the delicate movements of human hands, but at far greater speed. Equipped with 3D cameras, ripeness sensors, and AI recognition, these robots can identify each apple in a fraction of a second. Their silicone grippers perform a gentle twist-pull-detach motion, allowing them to harvest 1,200 to 1,500 apples per hour, 4 to 6 times faster than manual labor. Once picked, the apples are immediately transferred onto conveyor systems for automatic size grading. With the ability to operate around the clock, apple-picking robots are transforming orchards spanning hundreds of hectares into nearly fully automated harvesting lines. The hills of Zhejiang and Anhui have long been the cradle of China's finest teas, but traditional tea picking is full of risks. Clinging to slippery slopes, performing meticulous hand movements for hours, and facing a growing shortage of young labor. These challenges have driven the rise of tea-picking robots. These machines use high-resolution cameras combined with AI to identify individual tea buds in fractions of a second, distinguishing young leaves from mature ones with an error margin of less than 5%. Their mechanical arms are equipped with micro-vibrating cutting blades that mimic the skilled pinch and pluck motion of experienced pickers, ensuring the tea buds retain their shape and freshness. Each robot can handle the workload of 20 to 30 workers and can operate continuously even on terrain that is difficult for humans to access. As a result, traditional tea hills are gradually transforming into high-tech, highly precise harvesting systems, consistent, stable, and surprisingly efficient.